Good morning. I'd like to call the Commissioners' meeting to order. We'll start with the flag pledge led by Commissioner Lipke today.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, all. We have one addition to the agenda, which is our renewal of our grant under Health and Human Services for our fraud investigation. Is that correct?
And then, Mr. Chair, there's some additional information in your blue folders regarding the All Seasons Arena request as well.
Yes. Everybody should have that. I believe that was a note from their chair.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else? I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Before you now, we have, I've not seen any new employees, so I'm assuming we have no introductions? No?
No.
Okay, very good. Moving on to consent agenda. Look at, we're just sailing through the agenda already. Consent agenda, you have the items before you. I'd entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Lipke?
Yes.
Rydell?
Yes.
Kohler?
Yes.
Kemp?
Yes, thank you. We have an opportunity for public appearances. This is the open forum. Anyone wishing to address the board will be allotted 3 minutes on their topic. Seeing and hearing none, we will proceed, and guess who's up? Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. Hopefully you had a nice weekend.
I did, thank
Good.
you.
Thanks.
So I'm going to start with the request for a Nicollet County Commissioner appointment to the Substance Use Coalition. We discussed this in the board workshop last week, that the Nicollet Alliance for Prevention Against Alcohol, Tobacco, and Other Drugs was formed in April as a collaborative coalition between Nicollet County and community partners. The mission of this group is to come together as one community to educate, share knowledge, challenge our way of thinking, and prevent underage substance abuse. This group is requesting the participation and formal appointment of a Nicollet County Commissioner.
I think there was some discussion in our meeting, and I think Commissioner Morrow was willing to serve as the primary. Did you need an alternate also, or were
Be a
you?
good idea.
Did you meet?
I think we would request an alternate if possible.
Okay.
Could I move Terry as primary and Denny as alternate?
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mission accomplished.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on my list is the South Central Community-Based Initiative Purchase of Service Agreement. And I should note on here, I did select not approved by the County Attorney's Office, but it has been reviewed by Michelle. Just a little bit of background on this. This South Central Community-Based Initiative is a board with joint powers agreement for the counties of Blue Earth, Brown, Faribault, Martin, Freeborn, LeSueur, Nicollet, Rice, Sibley, and Watonwan. So this board accepts and administers grants, enters into contracts, and has hired a regional mental health manager who is responsible for the administration of the SCCBI. In 2018, this Joint Powers Board was established as its own entity rather than as a collaboration. So at that time, they began drafting a new Joint Powers Agreement and new bylaws. So just within the last couple of months, there's been work on developing formal contracts with each county for the services provided. The majority of those services fall under the management of the Department of Human Services Mental Health Initiative Grant. Through this grant, we receive reimbursement for our case management services, community support program services, and flex funds in the amount of $229,082. and funding for the Power Up Clubhouse in the amount of $20,000 annually. So this is the formal contract for Nicollet County for the South Central Community-Based Initiative to manage those funds and work with us directly.
So moved.
We have a motion?
Second.
We have a second? Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, how does this differ from past contracts?
We have not required a contract for this in the past because the Joint Powers Board was seen as a collaborative rather than an entity. So this just lies out the need to follow the bylaws and gives them the authority to manage the money and reimburse us.
Thank you.
Anything additional? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
And lastly, and thank you for the opportunity to add this to the agenda this morning, I have on here the renewal of the grant for our fraud prevention investigation program through the Department of Human Services. So this grant is for fiscal years 2020 and 2021 in the amount of $80,000 per year. And this salary is used to pay the wages and benefits for our fraud prevention investigator.
Is there paperwork on this, Mr. Chair? Did I miss it?
There wasn't submitted, a copy of it, I think.
I do have a
Ryan
copy
has,
of the
and-
grant agreement. It's, I believe, the same grant
It's
that we've signed in the.
Pretty
years past.
boilerplate from what we've done in the past with that one.
Yes, there are no changes to the grant, and so the contract was generated by the Department of Human Services.
And our fraud investigator is a sheriff's department employee, so what we do is we apply, Human Services applies for the grant, and then we contract with the sheriff's department for those services. We're then able to get food reimbursement then.
Correct.
Through the federal reimbursement program.
I'll move to go forward with that.
We have a
Second.
motion, we have a second. Any additional discussion?
I have a question, if you don't mind. Could
Please.
you tell me how this position is aiding your department and other departments in the county?
I think quite well. We have a very collaborative relationship with this position, particularly with our financial workers and our social workers. I have a few statistics from 2018 if you would like to.
Would you share some?
Absolutely. So in 2018, this position received 152 referrals. There were 93 cases found to have discrepancies in them. Let's see. The total overpayments that were issued were $126,955.52. And what our investigator really likes to discuss with us is that the more significant number would be the monthly case savings that we have, which would be an average of $53,467.87. And that savings is due to changes in what's being issued to people on a monthly basis as a result of fraud investigation.
If I may, Mr. Chair, so the recipients who received these payments fraudulently, if that's how you're determining, is it a matter of a mistake that they make, or is it intentional trying to get away with something?
I would say it can be our experience that either one could occur.
What does it occur more often?
That I would not know. And certainly we can ask Jay to participate in a board workshop this year so that he could share some more of those details. I more so have the numbers and know about the referrals, and he knows very much the day-to-day experiences.
Right.
Commissioner Kohlers, I think maybe county attorney could maybe elaborate a little bit on the ones that actually get prosecuted.
We work as Ms. Sassenberg indicated, we work very collaboratively with Human Services as well as the fraud investigator to look at all of the cases to make a decision about those intentional decisions versus misunderstanding of the program. I know that in conversations, Jay has talked a lot about using it as an education opportunity to make sure people understand the program requirements. We do not criminally prosecute many cases. I don't have that number in front of me. We are involved when there's an administrative action for sanction for inappropriately applying for those benefits. But I don't have those numbers right in front of me either. I could get them for later about how many We have prosecuted, some of the ones that we have prosecuted have some fairly substantial and intentional program violations.
I would add that in 2018, it looks like we had 2 cases that were criminal. The majority of the types of fraud found were related to unreported income, which could be either a mistake or intentional.
Mr. Chair, maybe it would be a good idea at a future discussion to learn more and get more information in detail.
I agree. Any additional questions in regard to the motion? Hearing none? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Sassenberg, appreciate your time. Oh, who's next? Property and Public Services.
Recycling.
We have Andy Landcamer is joining us. Good morning, nice to see you. Hope you had a good weekend.
I did. I hope everyone else did too with the lovely weather we had.
Well, for part of the time anyhow,
Right.
Yeah, most of it.
Well, I have 2 items on the agenda for your consideration. The first one is the establishment of the recycling committee. Within the packet, you will see a draft structure of the committee, goals and objectives the committee would address, and also a potential budget briefly discussed at last week's board workshop. I do want to note, I did hear back from Minnesota Bound regarding the shell equipment operator, and they indicated it's about $12,000. They are still working on the patent, so it's not available for purchase yet, but it is something that they know that there's been some interest with that piece of equipment. Just a reminder why we are requesting the establishment of the recycling committee. We know that we have some core functions that Tri-County currently operates in, which are very good and have been found to be very successful. Staff feels that at the establishment of the recycling committee would give us an opportunity to enhance those existing services and provide some additional services, along with providing additional educational opportunities for our residents with it. And we feel that we do have enough of our information available to us with the Recollect website and also the identified draft goals and objectives to move forward with this committee. So I am requesting an establishment of the committee today.
Entertain a motion for establishment of the committee.
I'll move it.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any additional discussion?
If I could, Andy, what other county examples are you using to create this idea for ours, and that have other counties or entities that have worked on it to make it work? If any.
I do. I was able to post it on our planning and zoning message board and to get feedback. Both locally, I got information back from Brown County and Blue Earth County, but then also I received information from Clearwater County, Clay County, Benton County, and then the 2 I mentioned with Blue Earth and Brown with it. And then Amy and I have done some research, and there are several committees like this established both on the East Coast and the West Coast, and so they were very informative as far as how they drafted their goals and objectives.
Mr. Chair, who sits on the Tri-County right now? So will this aid in our work with Tri-County or just be separately?
I think it will expand on what Tri-County does.
Okay.
I would share that. I think it's an impressive list of goals and objectives. You mentioning everything from expanding recycling to communication, and you mentioned the Recollect.
Mhm.
Is the Recollect website?
Recollect, yes.
Could you again say what that does?
That is an opportunity. Amy and I participated on a conference call with a vendor a couple of weeks ago, and they demonstrated how it currently used with some of our local counties within Minnesota, both Dakota, Washington, Stearns County, Sherburne County, and then also demonstrated the city of Denver on how they currently use that program. And it's very nice. That allows an individual to go in there and type in a type of material and how they can recycle it, and it kind of ranks it for best use, highest use, down to we have to put it in the garbage. There is no alternative at this time. The behind the scenes, which he showed us from City of Denver, allows us to kind of curtail our recycling services if there's a need or a request when they search through of how many people are looking for how to recycle pillows or for pizza boxes or styrofoam. It lets us know that information. Currently, right now, we don't know that. We don't know what the needs and wants are of our residents, and this website will help us kind of move our recycling services towards those directions.
Gentlemen.
Well, so Mr. Chair, I think Commissioner Coyle, that's part of the answer to the question about Tri-County, that these are additional or expanding upon what's being done. I think the discussion on composting also would be another avenue in which that would occur.
Yeah, we know that we can lead by our own actions with it, and we see the city of St. Peter taking on those same actions with their expansion of their composting services and paper towel services, and we know that people are going to look for the county as far as what are we doing for what our recycling services, and if we can lead in that way, then we have a better opportunity to be successful.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, Mandy, do you plan to, if approved here today, to go out and find the 4 rural members? And
We
2
will.
city members, recruit those positions and bring them back to the board?
Right, yeah, but once we get approval today, we'll go ahead and put something together for individuals. There's been some expressions over the years of interest, so we know those people have some type of interest already, and we'll reach out to those, but also then do our typical avenues of putting a press release out in the paper that we have established the committee and that we do have openings available for interested parties.
So, Mr. Chair, could we just say, are we looking for 4? Could you describe what we're looking for in that committee?
The structure consists of 1 commissioner with an alternate, 4 rural residents, and then 2 city residents. And so we'll have a total of 7 plus staff.
Mr. Chair, are there any grants available to help us with this from state or federal?
Not at this time. Our solid waste budget does have some money in there available to help us with these programs.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously for the formation of it. Is there an inclination to deal with the assignments? Would our existing Tri-County board members be willing to serve a dual
That's good.
role? Would that
I
make
think that would be
sense?
good, yeah.
So, do we need a motion for that approved? I guess we do technically.
Do you want to do that at this time, or do you want to do that when the committee is put together?
Well, I think we do it now, because that way Mandy knows who she's gonna work with once the rest of the committee is established. I don't think it will change.
Mr. Chair, there should be a motion for this.
I'll move Commissioner Morrow, Commissioner Drantle.
And I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. Motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
The
Did we
next
do
item.
everything you needed?
Yes, I did for that one, I did.
Okay.
Thank you. The next item I have within the packet is the consideration of the Lower Minnesota West One Watershed, One Planning Boundary and Resolution of Support, which is included within your packet. This is very similar to the resolution that the board approved last year for the Hawk Creek One Watershed, One Planning. This resolution is just indicating the support to move forward with a application to for a grant and financial assistance to start just the planning activities. Also within your packet is a proposed boundary of the Lower Minnesota River West. It does include portions of Nicollet County, I'd say almost all of Sibley County, and then a little bit of Renville and McLeod County. And one thing to note, this is different than what is proposed by the Board of Water and Soil Resources. You'll notice on the northeast corner, that does go up to the Sibley County boundary. Previously, it was located more to the southwest of it, but they have proposed of expanding their boundaries to the county boundary there. Just a little background about One Watershed, One Plan. This has been in place for about 4 years. A couple of pilot projects have been completed by Bowser with some, one specifically in Yellow Medicine, and then a couple up in the northern areas of the Minnesota. It is a opportunity to go ahead and get away with the political boundaries with it. It's to look at a geographical area and to plan based on that rather than the county boundaries basically with it. It is a process that takes about 2 to 3 years to complete. There are grants available. As I said, that this is a resolution of support to apply for a grant to start the planning activities. And then once you complete that, then there are additional opportunities for more dedicated funding rather than going the route of apply and not know if you're going to get the funding for the projects with it. So it is a much better process, and it does take care of all of the area rather than just portions of it. So what Sibley County is asking us to do is approve the resolution supporting the concept of One Watershed, One Plan and the support of the grant application, and then also the support of the proposed boundary.
Is this consistent with the map we saw and discussed at the workshop?
Yes,
Or
it is.
was that variant that you described in the northeast in that one? I'm just not recalling, so.
There, we did provide you a couple of different maps. This is the map that Sibley County has asked us, which was in your packet.
Right.
We did show you the Bowser one with 55 and 22. This is kind of a extension of 55 that you did see in your packet.
Mr. Chair, HIC is Highland Creek.
Correct.
Mr. Chair?
Sir.
So I think Commissioner Lipke was describing to me that the portion of Nicollet County would be in this area, that's as a dividing line, if you will, where the water either flows north or flows south, is that correct?
Correct. It is, based on all the geographical areas of where the water's draining to. That's why they'll go ahead and do the one watershed, one plan, rather than doing the entire county, because we do have water flowing to the south and to the north.
I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second?
We have a second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Anything else you have for us?
Nope, that was it.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Mandy.
Thank you.
Guess who?
My turn.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Nice to see
Mr.
you.
Chair, members of the board. My agenda item today is to discuss the negative drainage system fund balance transfer. On December 18th, 2018, the board approved a negative ditch fund balance policy in order to comply with state statute section 103E.655, paying drainage system costs. And now that we have fiscal year 2018 completed and submitted to our auditors, part of the attachment shows you and identifies the negative drainage system cash balance, which at the end of 2018 was $765,116.30. In order to cover the negative balance, we seek approval to temporarily transfer funds from the general fund. The advancement would be to be paid plus 4% interest as the funds become available in the individual ditch system. And we are seeking approval by unanimous resolution. The resolution has the individual ditches listed. Part of the audit requirements is on a financial statement, we cannot report a negative cash balance. So it's a requirement that we need to do something about it at the end of a fiscal year. So what this would do is it would set up basically an accounts payable and an accounts receivable on each fund. And the auditor's approach is that negative balances can be viewed as implicit loans from other ditch systems, so that's why we list all the ditches, even though some of them may be positive, but we just transfer the net of those, of all of them, and added together. So that's what I have for today. I'll entertain any questions or comments.
So, Mr. Chair,
Please.
so if there's ditches that total $1 million positive and ditches that have $1 million negative, it's a zero.
Yeah, so in the, it would be
As far as paying
in that.
interest.
Not for, this would just be for the cash
Oh, okay.
accumulation. For the interest, that's kind of a separate process. It's the same statute that we're following, but that is looked at individual ditches.
Individual ditches, okay, are
Correct.
responsible.
And that we look at quarterly.
Do you have any other procedural questions?
I can't remember, Mr. Chair, what was our balance last year? Did we have a balance last year that we were making transfers for?
I don't recall off the top. I think it was higher because we did bond in 18. I can get that number for you if you'd like.
And the expectation will be that we'll do this on an annual basis forever and ever?
Correct.
Oh,
All right.
Yeah, I did look at some other counties and their board minutes, and we're pretty much, looks like our neighboring counties are doing the exact same thing.
And this is state law, it's just we're now officially following it.
I think Jackie had worked on this, Bridget had started to work on this before, her going back in history a little bit, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Now we're finally getting to the
Where we need-
actual.
Right, well,
Well, there's statutory requirements and GASB requirements too.
Yeah.
Right.
So-
And
Correct.
the ditch fund is really set up like an enterprise fund where it's supposed to be self-funding.
right.
And what happens is we never carry a very large positive balance in the ditch fund. We do the work, we've always cash flowed it with the general fund and get repaid back. Now we're gonna do that officially on the books and also charge it just like we're supposed to as well. And regarding this balance, this number is probably higher than usual because we had quite a bit of ditch activity in 2018, so that's probably a higher than average number, 750,000.
The redeterminations are a large expense as well, and so
Right.
we've special assessed, but these special assessments are out there for multiple years, and we haven't retained that money yet.
So this will get closer to a more palatable number as time progresses.
Hopefully.
Thank you.
Any other elements? I think we'd entertain a motion for this resolution.
So I'll move the resolution.
We have a motion for the resolution.
Second.
We have a second. Any other discussion, any other questions? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Sorry. Marie made the motion, Commissioner Morrow seconded, sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Reluctantly, yes.
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 Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time and your effort. I know this has been an ongoing issue, so we really appreciate your work in this and getting it resolved for us. Thank you. Morning, Seth. Nice to see you up.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board and staff. A couple items from Public Works today. The first, to consider award of our 2019 bituminous materials contract. Last week on Monday, we received 2 bids and opened them up. The results of those bids should be contained in your board packet. When we bid this type of contract out, it's bidding out the unit price for those materials, and these materials, these asphalt materials, will be used in our seal coat operations. And so the results of those bids, Miggs Paving, Asphalts and Emulsions was the low bidder on this contract. And so I'm asking the board today to award this contract to Miggs Paving.
Is this consistent with anticipated numbers, or is there a bulk since we've been seeing some other increases in some of these other resources, or are we about where we
These
expected?
prices are a little bit more elevated than last year.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So, but consistent, not
Yep.
way over the top.
If I might, number of bidders,
Pardon?
number of bidders,
This is typical. Usually it's Miggs and Flint Hills are typically the 2 bidders. Sometimes I believe a company called Jebro, I believe they're out of Iowa. They sometimes bid, but it's pretty rare in Nicollet County to get them to bid.
Entertain a motion to accept.
so moved.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any other questions?
Just trying to second. John is too quick.
All right, so that was Commissioner Morrow, Commissioner Lipke. I'm sorry, we're training a new staff today, so. Okay. Anything else? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So, motion carries unanimously.
Second item for the board's consideration is to consider adoption of our ADA transition plan and corresponding resolution. The county, along with MAPO, embarked on developing ADA transition plans for all the member agencies in the MAPO boundary. That initial plan was only for the entities within the planning boundaries of the MAPO, but we need to have a transition plan that covers the entire county, and so Blue Earth County and Nicollet County chose to fund the additional amount to cover all the facilities in Nicollet County. This process and planning effort probably embarked on over a year ago, and has included inventorying all of our ADA facilities on our highway facilities. We've had numerous public outreach meetings, and we have had county board outreach presentation here. And so based on that complete culmination of that effort, we now have a final ADA transition plan. I believe on May 10th of 2019, the Maple Policy Board took action and approved the entire ADA transition plan for all member agencies, and now the Policy Board is requesting that each member agency adopt the Part 1 of the ADA transition plan, which is the general language that is pertinent for all member agencies, and then adopt the specific part of the plan that corresponds to the specific agency. And in our case, it is Part 7. And so I'd be more than happy to answer any questions about this, but my request will be for the county board to approve the corresponding resolution adopting Part 1 and Part 7 of the Maple ADA Transition Plan and Inventory.
Mr. Chair, as a member of the Maple Planning Board, I would so move.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. That would be Commissioner Morrow.
Mr. Chair.
Please.
Commissioner Kohler, or either way, could you tell us who MAPO is and what an ADA transition plan is about?
MAPO is the Mankato, North Mankato Area Planning Organization. Federal law requires when a urbanizing area achieves a population of 50,000 people or more, you have to form a metropolitan planning organization. And that was formed several years ago already. An ADA transition plan is the Americans with Disability Act, which governs accessibility to public infrastructure. And so on our highways, we have pedestrian ramps, sidewalks, those of that nature that need to meet specific criteria to provide safe transportation for people with disabilities. And so this plan inventoried all those facilities and measured them against those metrics to see if they complied or not complied. And so this plan basically lays out a roadmap of bringing our facilities into compliance.
And when new projects, say roundabouts or that are built, they're being built compliant?
Yes, correct. Yep. So I know we have a few ADA ramps and whatnot, say along County Road 13 North Mankato, that aren't compliant. And so when we do a major rehab project on County Road 13, those facilities would be incorporated into a project like that to be brought up to current acceptable standards.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner, it was interesting to note when Bolton and Mink was doing this study, the growth in the transit system in the Mankato area is just way through the roof with people using it, but the bus stops and the areas where people get on the buses, they're just subpar. I mean, curbs instead of flat areas to enter a bus. And so there's a lot of work with, well, they discovered a lot of issues with those things that were built 20, 30, 40 years ago that aren't compliant today.
Additional?
Mr. Chair, this includes all of Nicollet County then?
All of Nicollet County, correct. And our plan covers the roads that are under the county's jurisdiction, and so it doesn't include city streets in St. Peter or North Mankato, but they will have their own separate ADA transition plan.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
I think I moved it.
And Commissioner Morrow second.
Yes.
Commissioner Morrow.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have any updates for us, as long as we have you here in the...
You know, I don't have any specific updates. Things are pretty much where they stood at my last major update at the last board meeting, but if.
We're optimistically not getting any worse at the moment anyhow.
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
But I'd be more than happy to answer any specific questions that any commissioner may have.
Mr. Chair, no update on number 1?
We are still waiting on approvals from the different approving agencies. The big one right now is waiting for a response from the different tribal councils that have jurisdiction in the state of Minnesota. And so when you use federal funds, you need to get approvals from all these different type of agencies. And right now, the tribal groups have until June 21st to respond to us if there's any concerns about tribal issues.
That's for 21 as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Lawn and 21, or Bridge on 21?
Yes.
We're waiting on that as well, right?
Yes. Yep.
And on 14? And you said it's pretty much where it was? County Road 14?
Yeah, County Road 14, we haven't seen any increase in damage at this time. The guys will be checking on it again today after receiving our
And
heavy
any
rainfall
ideas from
again.
federal or state, the best way to fix it?
I have received some correspondence from the MnDOT Geotech office that just came in this morning. I have not had a chance to review any of their recommendations. Really, the next step will be taking whatever information that I have gotten in that email and formulating it into tasks and a scope of services to hire a geotechnical consultant. There is definitely quite a few discussions going on between MnDOT and Federal Highway on how do we actually procure those services and be able to be reimbursed with federal funds. So it's quite an interesting process, to say the least.
And I heard, I don't know if this involves you, but one of the townships is considering pumping considerable amount of water to save one of their roads.
Oh, I am not aware.
Okay.
Do you know which township?
It's either it was either Lake Prairie or Granby. I
Okay.
don't remember which one.
Which road?
I don't remember that either.
Oh, okay.
So one of the Crones told me that they had been inquired upon 20 million gallons, which is quite a lot of water.
Yeah, that is a lot of water,
It's probably more than that now after another rain.
probably.
Anything else?
Mr. Chair, I just would like to thank Seth and the engineers across the state of Minnesota for helping to provide information to boards like this and the state legislature. But unfortunately, that information which is used to guide our counties and our state in funding transportation fell on deaf ears at the Minnesota legislature this year, causing myself personally and this board, I hope generally, and our whole state globally, much disgust. And so in visiting with one of the elected officials who was part of the decision not to fund an increase in transportation funding, I said, where to now? He said, to the next campaign, to the next election. And quite frankly, I'm getting a little tired of hearing that. And so I would encourage you folks as engineers to continue to supply us with this information, Seth, because it's good, solid information that is based on fact, based in fact, and not in some theory that we don't need a gas tax or we don't need continued funding for transportation. I don't ask you to put your foot into the political water, but you must certainly be disappointed in the lack of action at the state legislature.
Anything else?
All right,
You know we're
thank you.
jumping up for that, so thank you very much, Seth. And thank you and your staff for all the diligence that you have been in keeping us appraised, but also keeping our motorists and our citizens safe. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
I would call a brief recess. Should we give you about 10 minutes? Would that be adequate? Or do you want to just mush through this? I don't see a huge list here, but it's up to where everybody's leisure. If you would like to, I would call a recess, and if you would rather just convene the ditch authority, that would be fine.
Mr. Chair, I note that, as after you get it, it's just approval of the minutes that I believe is the only piece of business.
Right, that's
for
the only
drainage
consent
authority.
agenda item.
I have
You
one
want-
meeting announcement for the Drainage Authority too, so
Okay,
that's
so-
pretty straightforward.
All right, so then I hear consensus that we're gonna continue on. So we'll briefly recess the board meeting and call to order the Drainage Authority meeting. And our item on, we have one consent agenda item, and we're gonna add something now, right?
Just a meeting announcement.
Meeting announcements, okay, and that will be item 2 then. Okay, we have before you the consent agenda, which is the approval of the 2014 Drainage Authority meeting minutes.
Mr. Chair, I will approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion by Drell,
Second.
we have a second by Lipke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 2.
Mr. Chair, I found out right before the meeting that there's going to be a landowner meeting for 62A on June 10th. I don't believe the board has received any information on this at all. So June 10th, in this room, Michelle,
Yes.
do you have the time?
It is at 10:30.
10:30, and the meeting is gonna be hosted and put on by ISG. It's not a Drainage Authority meeting, it's an
Right.
ISG meeting to discuss our issues that we have with 62A. So if commissioners want to attend that, they should participate in the crowd with the landowners, and I'll notice it as a public meeting.
And that was gonna be my question, is we're gonna notice it. So we'll assume that that will be resolved, and we'll notice it. And those that can attend or feel the need to attend can. That's all we have?
That's it.
Anything else? I entertain a motion to adjourn the Drainage Authority
So
meeting.
moved.
Do we have a motion?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. I now call back to order the Commissioners' meeting. And look who's there, our administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
My item today is in regards to a request from All Seasons Arena for the county to consider being part of that Joint Powers Board. In March, we received this request. We also received just Friday additional information that I included in your blue folders here today. As a member, Nicollet County would be responsible for 2.5% of the operating budget and future capital costs, and that's based on our population as it relates to District 77. At the May County Board Workshop, the board discussed this request and if membership into the joint powers aligned with the county's mission statement or not. So I included in the packet here today, again, the first request from March. And I would ask the board to consider what they want to do with this request. And again, keeping in mind that our discussion last week really focused around, does this fit our mission as a county in providing service?
What are the desires of the board?
Well, can I air my opinion?
Not yet.
Okay.
We would need a motion in a second to get it on the table.
Okay.
Seem to be stoically quiet here.
I'll move approval to get it on the table so we can discuss.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I guess my opinion is that,
We still don't have a
oh,
second.
we don't have the second?
No,
Okay, well,
we
I'll
don't have a
just
second yet.
give the second for,
We have a motion
Opportunity
and we
to
have a
discuss.
second. Discussion, thank you.
I guess my
Commissioner-
opinion is, on our mission statement, this really doesn't fit into there. And the other reasoning I have is if we do this, New Ulm will be asking for help. And in my district and in most of yours, a lot of the people do their shopping either Mankato or New Ulm and pay the sales tax there that helps support these items. So I am not in favor of joining this.
We have additional commentary.
Mr. Chair, I would simply add, in agreement with John's, that we also have requests within the county on recreation facilities. And to Ryan's point about what the mission of the county is, I'm not prepared to support out of county and not even be talking about inside the county.
Thank you. Any other?
Ditto.
Ditto, okay.
Yes.
So a no
It's
vote
hard.
what we're looking for here, like Terry and myself, right?
Well,
Well, there's a motion on the floor.
we have the motion.
Motion to
If the motion fails or it's voted down, then we would not proceed.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, in this matter of the invitation, if I could just
Please.
place a few comments out there. The former Ice Palace facility, as it was known back in the olden days, that provides hockey and ice skating experiences for youth in the region. I just would like to share a couple of ideas. When this joint powers agreement was started in about 1979, Nicollet County was an original member. In about 1997, the county board here in Nicollet County voted 3-2 to leave that joint powers agreement, and at that time I was one of the two who voted against that idea. Generally speaking, I think residents of our region like the idea when government entities can join together to support joint efforts to benefit our region. As I understand, this invitation to rejoin All Seasons Arena Powers Board would give Nicollet County a seat at the table to determine the future of the facility. And as I understand it, it's not necessarily tied to any of the proposals by the area hockey enthusiasts to build that $20 million ice facility the area of Highway 14 and North Victory Drive in Mankato. So the suggested investment of $1,025 per year for the next 3 years is not an extraordinary amount of money for the county to become re-involved. But having said all that, I wanted to say that the argument that the funding, the operation of a recreational facility outside of our county borders, I understand that does not meet the mission of our county. It's a strong consideration. The argument that if we as a county decide to rejoin this joint powers agreement to benefit youth activities, could it open the door for future requests from New Ulm, North Mankato, St. Peter, has real implications as well as to where will the county stop in the future if they become involved in such an agreement. And the idea that Nicollet County residents shopping in the Mankato area help contribute to the sales tax also carries weight. It does. So if I could, finally, if this involvement would lead to Nicollet County being invited to participate in the future renovation of the existing arena facility or the future funding of a new $20 million arena, my feelings to cast a vote in support would be vastly diminished. I would say, Mr. Chair, in summary, I appreciate and understand concerns of my fellow commissioners to, the way it sounds, respectfully decline this invitation to rejoin our neighbors in the All Seasons Arena All Joint Powers Board. But in an effort to support youth activities in our region, I would vote to accept this 3-year invitation and make future relationship decisions with this Joint Powers Board down the road. Thank you.
Anything additional? Hearing nothing else, I will call the roll on this.
Commissioner Fuller?
No.
No.
Oh, wait,
Yeah.
I would.
You can vote no, Jack, that's
you're
okay.
voting yes to not be part of it.
No,
No.
the
The
request
motion
of the
was-
motion was to enter into the agreement.
I'm sorry. I vote yes. Sorry, John.
That's fine.
Okay,
But I didn't make the motion.
Yeah, you
So-
did.
yes, you did.
Yeah. I seconded it for you.
I'm not here.
Obviously.
Right.
So you voted yes.
Yes, I voted yes.
I vote no.
Laurel.
No.
Trail.
No.
No. Thank you all. Thank you for your diligence. I know this has been a big topic of discussion, but it appears that the considerations of long-term exposure of this event seems to be the swaying factor. So, thank you for your time. I appreciate your willingness and support. So, thanks.
One thing I will say, Mr. Chair, from the 18, 19, or how many years' experience, when this body voted back in whatever the year was, 97, 98, we didn't have a workshop ahead of it.
Right.
We didn't have conversations like we do in our workshop for all of the items that come before us as a board to give us that background and to give us the feeling of what department heads are saying. That's an important part of the way we're learning how to govern better as a county. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate what you're doing with that, Ryan, and other department heads.
Anything else on that topic? Hearing none, let's proceed on the agenda. And we have our informational items. We have the chair's report. Relatively busy for my attendance since our last gathering. We had the employee appreciation luncheon, our SHIP meeting, department head workshop, Brown Nicollet Community Health. I also serve on the ECN board, the Electronic Communication Board, ARMOR, and South Central EMS. And the other item I would have is I would ask your support for a letter of support on behalf of Kip Brunder, one of our commissioners in our neighboring county, who is seeking the position to fill a vacancy on the MCIT board.
Oh.
And it's a temporary position, it's a board-appointed one until that position stands its next election. And so, when I talked to Commissioner Brunder, he thought that some of those types of things would be helpful in his seeking that seat. And so I would ask this group to, considering allowing a letter of support to be issued from this body.
I think that's a good idea.
You made a motion?
I'll make the motion. Though I normally don't do that from the chair, I apologize.
No, it's okay. Second.
I'd support that.
So, hearing no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimously carried. Thank you very much. And I
Mr.
will-
Chair, could you say just a moment about your ARMOR meeting, kind of what's going on in the emergency communications?
Well, the emergency communications, some of the bigger issues right now are the fact that all of the devices that were originally acquired through grants, i.e. the squad car radios, the portable radios, are reaching their end of serviceable life. And so part of that discussion is, where are we going to go with that? Since we are entering budget time, one of my recommendations will be for our county to establish a revolving fund, because these devices are not cheap. The average portable radio, for reference right now, is about $3,500. We are reaching the point, and our sheriff isn't gonna abandon everything, sheriff being the largest consumer of some of those resources, but they are to the point now where they're not gonna be repairable. And so when certain features of those things fail, we're in the point of trying to replace those, and that pool of resources is getting larger. We also have those in, I believe we're using 800 in the county shop vehicles, correct? Mostly portables, or kind of a mixed bag?
Mixed bag.
Mixed bag. So you're in about the same boat where we are with that. I think the other thing we need to consider going forward on that is also the, our county fire services are going to be in a situation where we're maintaining a UHF, or I'm sorry, we're maintaining a VHF networked paging system for those folks. The vendors who have finally come up with an 800 megahertz paging device that allows some of those functions that our firefighters traditionally in VHF were very, very interested in and found very helpful is now becoming available. Those are going to be significant costs. Some of that cost can be offset by the fact that we're not maintaining a separate parallel system to do some of those services. Again, my personal bias is I'm always leery of pushing all the eggs into one basket, but it's one that since we have all been placed in the need for the 800 megahertz, 800, 700, 800 megahertz radio system, we're kind of in that too big to fail mode now. And how some of those dollars are being expensed come through a fee that everyone pays if they're gathering a cell phone right now. The other issue that's on the table that we need to discuss, and we may need some legislative authority to do, is also to be able to tap some of the 911 funds. There's a significant excess of funds in a lot of accounts for that we may be able to need or may need to leverage. But we're also at that point where the councils which serve the dispatch areas are also timing out in age. So we're really kind of running into that ongoing thing. And so it may be in our best interest to move forward both as an organization where we partner with everyone in the region, but also there may be some leveraging we can do with AMC and some other things to help put that in place. But for purely protecting ourselves, I think we really need to consider a ongoing funding mechanism for that specific item. Does that answer,
Well,
or
and
does
this-
that create more questions than answers?
These questions were in St. Paul a decade ago about
Right.
the 800 system and paying for it, so I just wanted to be
Right.
clear that this is not a Nicollet County issue, this is a state,
No.
if not a national.
It's a state issue. There are, I think the other thing that Minnesota hasn't gotten quite to is when the funding issues become more real, we're gonna probably see a device user fee that's gonna ultimately be paid to the state. So for people that aren't fully familiar with this, the 800 Armor radio system that we deal with is very much like a cell phone network. And it really operates that same way. There are technically there are 3 switch points in the entire state. So when someone keys their radio in wherever, it goes to a switch point and gets routed to those devices. So it's a much more elaborate, it's not that one point type distribution. So there's a huge amount of backbone investment. If you look at the original dollars that were funded, even with the funding mechanism as originally proposed when they bought Armor,
$600,000 in Nicollet County that I believe we bonded for.
yes, yes.
Yeah, that sticks out in my mind.
That sounds about right. And so again, I'm trying not to, for something that's arguably, and we're constantly changing the technology, it's one of those things that I don't think we can bond our fix through these things because we're not going to recover those dollars as quickly. So it may be in our better interest to, even if we get penalized by our auditor, that we start building a fund to have some of those resources and be aware of that, because it's going to be an inevitable cost. And any way we can help partner with our local fire departments, I think makes sense, because they also serve all of our traditional constituency. So the rural fire departments, those have an impact on what we do. Also EMS, because we have 3 different EMS organizations that are doing ambulance services. We need to be aware of that and make sure that we have those resources available. So I'm sorry I've blabbled on, but.
No, but it's a tremendous need. I mean, not only the day-to-day, if you will, but when you get an event like a tornado, you really see the need to have that interoperable communicative system.
And that was the goal. That was the finite point of making this happen. And we also have a very active group in the region. enhanced 911 options that are coming in. Right now, some of those services are being shared. Waseca County was one of the first that hosted for the entire region, answering text 911 calls. And so as the technology advances and gets spread out, we'll see all of those going to the various PSAPs, public safety answering points. And so it's going to be a lot of stuff. And there's going to be some really significant dollars involved in this. So my argument would be we need to prepare for that locally, but also also have the opportunity. I'm serving on this statewide radio board finance committee, so we should be able to at least kind of see where things are lining up, and we'll offer that input and my limited insight into that as we go forward.
Perfect, thanks.
Sheriff Kemp, I know 8-10 years ago when we were going online with Armor, there was already word that there was work on the replacement for Armor happening.
Yes.
Is it going to be Armor in the 800, or are we going to navigate to a different platform?
You're going to probably stay in the same bandwidth because of the infrastructure piece. 800 is pretty effective in some areas. The issue that we're having is some areas that haven't been fully built out yet. We are in certain locations and businesses. One that came up before our board was adding and needing to add another tower structure in Sibley County because Arlington can't talk to anybody. And if you're in some of their structures, whether it's police, whether it's fire, whether it's ambulance, they can't get out of some of those structures. We were able to help them with a grant on a 50-50 match, but that represents a new tower structure for them is going to represent just short of $500,000. So the county is participating in part of it, as is the city of Arlington. So that's a huge bite for smaller counties and smaller communities, but their needs are no less exigent than anyone else's. And so that's what we're trying to do. We've done a range of grants for some organizations and some structures, especially schools, hospitals, where we don't have the ability to speak out of that. And when I say speak out, we can't talk out of that system. That some of those are local bidirectional amplifiers for just that structure to help fund those. They're significantly less expensive, but very, very specific. And so those are parts of those issues. So 700, 800 meg, there is also going forward, a broadband technology for EMS. There were some federal grants involved with that. They are trying to customize some devices. I believe AT&T was the significant player in that. We don't know what the dollar structure is going to look like yet, but it is in the works, and there will be some other resources out there, but which also reflects to other devices and more cost on the local user. So again, my cautionary tale is we need to be thinking ahead of that and not get caught flat-footed, and I don't want us to be in that situation. There. Anything else I can grind out? Okay. And then I think we have Commissioner Kolar's.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May 14th, County Personnel, County Board, County Picnic, which was tremendous. Thanks again for all the work of our staff to put that on. The TDS board, the Traverse to Sioux board, is circling around the 9 counties. Last meeting was in New Ulm. May 20th, we had our Minnesota Valley Action Council meeting, and May 21st, the board workshop. Please note, June 5th is our AMC District 7 meeting in St. James. That's June 5th, a Wednesday, at the St. James Legion right downtown, so hope all can be there. Thank you.
Commissioner Randall.
Well, we had a beautiful weather day for our employee picnic.
Yes.
They don't happen very often, so
Yes.
thankfully we had a nice day.
That's right.
We were all very fashionable in our hairnets.
Yes, we were.
Yes.
Forgot about that, sorry. There's pictures out there, I'm sure.
Okay.
Had a Project 33 meeting last Monday at the City of St. Peter. Ongoing discussions about water management issues on St. Peter's West Side. Tuesday, I was late to the board workshop, because I was in Gaylord at a joint ditch meeting where we moved forward with a final engineer's report on a $1.2 million project. And Thursday morning, I had a Brown Nicollet CHB conference call.
Commissioner Morrow.
As well, the picnic, thank you to all the employees, thank you, Ryan, and the folks who set it up. Greatly appreciate that. Workshop as well, joined Maria at the Project 33 meeting with the city. We had a fun event out at House Pond, a planting event. Really, I think mostly put together by the city and a private group from the cities to plant native plants along the pond here in town, and then was invited to join the Power Up Clubhouse. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and they had a nice walk along 169 here and went to a park, went and had a nice event. So that was just some of the things I was up to. And then Memorial Day over in the park yesterday.
Great. Commissioner Lipke.
Well, I was at the picnic with the rest of you, the workshop with most of you, and went to the Memorial Day not festivities, observance in Lafayette yesterday.
Great. Thank you for all of that.
And I did check on Henry Martin's ditch this morning, and it is not very high.
Okay. Do we have any conference or meeting issues that we need to resolve other than the NACO National Conference? I'm optimistic. There was some discussion that some of you were interested in attending. So, or has that gotten?
I don't believe anybody was gonna attend the summer one, or at least not as of last meeting.
Okay. All right. Well, that is still an opportunity. I believe registration is still open. So
Right.
if your summer schedule changes, would be nice.
Just a reminder that next week we have our AMC district meeting, and looking forward to some tasteful comedy from our outgoing chair there. He always provides some very politically neutral jokes.
Now, there's so much material, Ryan.
I'm sure you'll refrain.
Yeah.
Right.
I would like to again thank Jack for serving. That was 2 terms. That's 6 years you served.
Actually, two years.
2 years. I'm sorry, 4-year term. 4 years. And thank you for your service to our county, but also to all of the members of our district, but also to AMC. It's greatly appreciated. Your voice has been resonating throughout the halls of AMC for a long time, and that's greatly appreciated. So thank you for your work. Those are a lot of meetings and a lot of work.
I appreciate your kind words. It almost feels like a funeral, right?
Better to be talked to than about, though, right? Yes. Approval per diems and expenses.
Move it.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes unanimously. And I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is adjourned. Thank you for all your work and your kindnesses.